Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wish everybody a good morning. May Allah accept your suhoor and may accept our fasting today, inshallah. The Prophet ﷺ's companions were people of some deep faith. Their connection to their faith and the way they dealt with each other was just something profound. So today we're going to talk about a few stories of the strong faith of the believers, as well as how the Prophet ﷺ interacted with a Jewish man who expressed his faith. So we'll start with the story of Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu. At one time he came to visit the Prophet ﷺ's house in the morning. The Prophet ﷺ came to the door. He asked him, in Arabic you say Kayfa asbaht. Kayfa asbaht means how are you doing this morning? And so he said, I'm getting around the morning as a very strong believer in God the Exalted. أصبحت مؤمنا بالله حق اليقين. So the Prophet ﷺ, he responded, every statement has a fulfilling evidence, just as every truth has a reality. So what is the fulfilling evidence of this statement of yours that you have woken up and are engaging the morning as a certain believer? He said, O Prophet of God, in fact, I never wake up thinking that I'm necessarily going to make it to the nighttime. And I never go to sleep in the night thinking that I'm necessarily going to wake up. And if I'm going on my camel or my horse, or if I'm walking somewhere, I don't believe that necessarily I will arrive where I'm going. I actually feel like everywhere I go, that right now, in this moment, it is crucial for me to be a believer. He said, I see all of the nations in all of their flaws of the world, many of them going to come forth, and their prophets will come as a proof for or against them, and then they will have their idols and those things they worship besides Allah there to testify against them. So it's like I live my life every day, at every part of my day, like I can see the hellfire on my left, and I can see the gardens of heaven on my right. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Araft, you truly know how spirituality works. You truly know this religion. Falzam, so stick to that way of thinking for the rest of your life. Such profound, language. And that's just how they thought. It's not, something they say for making the Prophet ﷺ think that they're really deeply spiritual. These are people who live their life reading the Qur'an and following the Prophet ﷺ to the best of their ability. On another occasion, there was a time that Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu was sitting with the Prophet ﷺ. A man named Harmala came to sit with them. So he sat down with the Prophet ﷺ and Abdullah bin Umar, and he said, listen, Prophet, the tongue is where faith comes out, and the heart is where hypocrisy tests us. So the Prophet ﷺ looked at him for a moment, and he just didn't say a word. So then the guy said what he said again. He said, faith comes out on the tongue, but hypocrisy tests us. So the hadith says that the Prophet ﷺ reached forward his hand, and he took the tip of the tongue of Harmala, and he started to pray. Oh Allah, give Harmala an honest tongue. Give him a grateful heart. Give him my love and the love of those who love me, and direct him to all that is good. Then Harmala told him, actually, I want you to know that I'm a believer and I want to relieve myself of hypocrisy. So me and some of my tribal members, we are hypocrites, and we've been sitting and spying and conspiring now for some time. And I was basically the worst among them. But every time I engage with you and this beautiful prayer, I'm filled with faith. So I'm ready to commit. I want to take you to my friends so that you can talk with them. The Prophet ﷺ said, look, if your friends want to come here as you have come, and they're seeking forgiveness and they're seeking guidance, then the door is wide open, and we would love everyone to be guided. And we will seek forgiveness for them no matter what they have done hypocrisy-wise. But if they're going to be hypocrites, it's of no use for us to go visit them. It will just create a problem that we don't need. So let's wait and see when they decide where they want to go. And see, the Prophet ﷺ understands that faith is something that has to come from the heart of the person. You can't push someone into it, specifically someone as corrupt as a hypocrite. So another story is a man was on a mission with some of the believers, and he was very versed in the Qur'an. He's memorized lots of Qur'an. It doesn't say his name in the hadith. And as they were going, he would lead the people in the prayers. And it says in the hadith that he would conclude every prayer with Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, so forth. So they kind of thought it was awkward that every salah that he did over some days, it was concluded in such a way. So they were concerned maybe this is some sort of dangerous innovation that we're establishing a new precedent, a new policy without an example coming from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they said, well, there's this guy, he was leading us in prayer, and he keeps ending his salah with Surah Al-Ikhlas. Now, some of the scholars said what it meant was, at the second rak'ah of every out loud prayer, he said Surah Al-Ikhlas. Some of them said, no, what it means is he would read some portion of the Quran in the first and the second rak'ah, and then in the first and the second rak'ah, he would add Surah Al-Ikhlas. And other scholars said that he would just add Surah Al-Ikhlas at the end of the second reading in the second surah. But either way, none of these are done by the Prophet ﷺ. So they went to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, this is what this guy is doing. What do you think? He said, well, why don't you ask him why he's doing that? And so I'm fairly certain they've asked him, and the guy said, well, this is what we should all do because this is the best surah of the Qur'an. And I think the Prophet ﷺ would have, reprimanded that and corrected it and said, no, that's not, who told you that? Where did you get that knowledge? But what the man said when they asked him was, this is the complete description of the merciful God. And so I love to recite this because I love him. And so then the Prophet ﷺ told them, leave him be because Allah and his messenger love him. Because he was doing it for a sincere love for the surah in general. And so he loves it, so he's reciting. And there's nothing wrong with that. Its problem would be if you tried to institute it, that everybody else, this is what you're supposed to do, or I'm following the right way of doing it, and everybody else needs to follow. So this is how they were. Surah Al-Ikhlas, somebody wants to read it in every salah. And it's really, really, really unfortunate how many people don't actually feel the weight of Surah Al-Ikhlas. It carries the weight of a third of the Qur'an, as the Prophet ﷺ said. And if you don't feel that way, if you feel like, well, to me, it just seems like there's only one God and he's unique and he doesn't have kids and he's not, and so there's nothing like him. If you have that basic translational understanding, you really should go read, for example, In the Shade of the Qur'an. You can go online and you can download it for free onto your phone or your computer and read the commentary of In the Shade of the Qur'an, even Ma'arif al-Qur'an. You can read the commentary on that, and you're going to get a much deeper, richer understanding of the surah. And so then the last story I'd like to say today is about a Jewish scholar who came to sit with the Prophet ﷺ. It says he was a Jewish scholar. And he came and he sat, and then he started to talk about God. And he says, surely God has all of the heavens on a finger, and all of the planets are on a finger, and the mountains and the trees are on a finger, and all of the lakes and the oceans are on a finger, and all of the land is on a finger. He shakes all of that as he likes, saying, I am the true king of all of this creation. So obviously this is metaphorical. It means that God has the control and power over everything and every atom, and at any moment he can do whatever he wants with it because he's the king and ruler and owner of all of it. So the Prophet ﷺ, when the man said that, he laughed and he said, you've spoken the truth. And they recited the ayah from, I believe, I'm trying to remember, I think it's with An'am, وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبْضَتُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. So it says that the people did not estimate God with a proper estimate. They don't look at him in his proper greatness, and the whole earth will be in his hand on the day of judgment. And so basically the ayah here is kind of confirming the same thought process of the Jewish scholars. So these are some of the attitudes of the Prophet ﷺ and how he engaged others. and he looked for common ground with this Jewish man. He could have said, "Yeah, who told you that? Where did you get that?" But it generally aligns with what we know from Revelation. So may Allah bless us all to have a rich level of faith, and that when we deal with people in our lives, that faith is front and center, and that how we know Allah in the Qur'an and the Sunnah, and how we understand the Prophet ﷺ and his life and his character is something that moves us in whatever we do. So may Allah protect us and bless us to succeed. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.